The drive home feels sluggish. The further Bakugou goes from the tiny mountain town still decorated with Christmas lights, the more he feels the weight of the past week settle in on his shoulders. He thinks twice about turning back. Once when he's still wiping at his eyes, trying to stop the tears from clouding his vision, and another nearly an hour later when his car makes a noise, creaking and choking, and immediately Bakugou thinks he could go back, get it looked at. "I thought you said you fixed it," he could say when pulling back up to the hotel. "Stupid thing sounds like it could fall apart any second." But his car doesn't stop, and the noise only happens once, so Bakugou continues on through the mountain roads, keeping his focus straight ahead just like he had when he left, almost afraid to find out what he would actually do if he looked back. He tries not to think about it too much, though it's really the only thing on his mind for the first half of the drive. But as the winding highway and tree line turn a little easier, less inclines with the road slowly widening as nature disappears in favor of buildings, first speckled around and then growing more and more frequent, like its own urban forest cluttered together, reaching up towards the sun. Bakugou finds it a little bit easier to focus on what's ahead of him. Getting home, going back to Kat, having to get a new phone, call his doctor to get looked at, call the firehouse to tell them he was in an accident but feeling fine and he swears he can go back to work. Bakugou floods his mind with everything in the city, everything that he's been living with before the last week, everything that will continue on after, and it makes it a little easier to continue driving. To pull up to his apartment building, to only grab one bag for now because he's tired, so tired, and let that fatigue settle in, let it creep down his limbs, because it makes it easier to say all the heartache is just from lack of sleep instead of the thought of what he left behind. As soon as he gets up to his apartment, unlocks the door, drops his bag, and leans heavily against the wall as he kicks his shoes away, Kat is there. She comes to him quickly, meowing loud and nonstop, looking from Bakugou's perspective positively irritated. His apartment feels cold. He sighs, leaning down to her level so she can headbutt him, meowing right in his face as she does so. I know, he says, scooping her up in his arms even as she continues practically screaming in his ear. I wouldn't have wanted to be left alone with Deku of all people for a week too, but it is what it is. I heard you got to fuck him up a little though. She scratches at her ears and she responds with more meowing before biting at his hand. Not hard, but enough that Bakugou knows he too will be on her shit list for a little bit. He takes the punishment as is, letting her chew and grasp his hand tightly with her claws as he walks over to the couch and falls on it with Kat still held in his arms. Bakugou knows he shouldn't sleep. There's so much to do. He needs to unpack, he needs to do laundry, he needs to go shopping for both him and Kat. There's his phone and his doctor and work. He should probably get his car looked at again, just in case. He should probably call his therapist with all the sleepless nights he's had. There's so many things that have gone wrong and right in the last week. So many things he still needs to deal with, to process, to handle. But right now, he can't think of any of them. He's on his own couch, in his own home, with his stupid cat in his arms, surrounded by a place he feels comfortable, safe, if not a little bit less warm, a little lonely, with a little less sparkle in the lights. But he pushes all that away and decides, instead, to just let himself not think about it at all. Bakugou closes his eyes and falls asleep. It's 2 hours later, maybe 3, when Bakugou's woken abruptly by pounding at his door. Kat is nowhere to be seen, likely hiding from the intense pounding as Bakugou finds he wants to do much the same thing. But the noise is persistent. He tries his best to ignore it, but it keeps getting louder, more demanding, and finally he throws himself up with the intent to kill whoever is on the other side. You annoying son of a... And then the door jiggles. knob turning and his thrown open to reveal Midoriya standing there holding the spare key Bakugou lent him, his eyes looking just as wild as his stupid hair always does. "Kachan," Bakugou interrupts, snarling. "I thought I told you to leave the fucking key when you were done for the week. I don't want your sorry ass being able to come into my apartment whenever the fuck you feel." Then, from behind him, stepping into view, comes Kirishima. Kirishima, who he left behind this morning, who is now standing in front of him once again, looking almost like he just ran a marathon, panting softly with sweat on his brow, clothing looking a little disheveled and his hair pulled back into a messy little ponytail. He still looks so goddamn handsome it hurts. Bakugou blinks. "What the absolute fuck is happening right now?" Bakugou. "Kachan, you didn't tell me you met someone." Bakugou shifts, taking a step back. "I didn't. Didn't. But it shouldn't have." He groans, pinching the bridge of his nose. "What the hell are you doing here, Kirishima? How are you here?" He called me." Midoriya practically sings it, eyes wide and sparkling. "At first I was kinda creeped out, but then he was explaining, and I think one of his other friends started yelling too. Mina? Was her name Mina? And—" "Deku!" Bakugou snaps. "Shut up." He watches Midoriya shrink back a little, pouting as he snaps his mouth shut even though he clearly wants to keep rambling about whatever the fuck has happened to get up to this point. "You." Bakugou then snaps at Kirishima, who jumps a little. Bakugou crosses his arms, glaring. "Explain." Kirishima hesitates, but steps forward after a moment. He looks big and out of place in Bakugou's entry. He's still wearing his winter coat, a peak of his flannel plaid shirt beneath, with wet spots of melted snow at his shoulders. He looks altogether awkward and sheepish, even being so big and broad as he is. And Bakugou wonders if this is how he must have appeared at first, standing in that hotel, meeting all of Kirishima's friends for the first time. In over his head, lost in a place he didn't belong. He shouldn't be here, just like Bakugou shouldn't have been there. "I made a mistake." Hearing this, Bakugou stills. Kirishima looks awkward, still too big and too brash and too not where he's meant to be. But again he steps forward and makes his presence bigger, makes room for himself, even if the fit is jagged. "I made a mistake letting you go." His heart suddenly hammers and Bakugou's mouth goes dry. He stares at the man, stares at him as he gets even closer. As he gets so close, Bakugou knows if either of them reached out, they'd touch the other. He hadn't thought that would be something he'd ever be able to do again after the sun rose, and now that he can do it, that it's possible, Bakugou finds himself frozen, unable to do anything at all. But Kirishima isn't frozen. He's just as warm as ever and takes advantage by closing the distance between them to gently take Bakugou's hand, slowly unfolding his arms from his chest so he can really grasp them. Run his fingers over the back of Bakugou's hands while Bakugou worries he'll be able to feel just how hard and how fast his heart is beating now. "I should have told you to stay." The entire world suddenly narrows down to the small pinpricks of existence. Just him and Kirishima. Everything else falls away, and Bakugou finds it all feeling otherworldly as his fingers tingle and his heart jumps even as his stomach twists into an endless knot. He swallows, trying to remember how his body works, how his jaw and tongue need to move to form words. He tries, even if they're all wrong. "You know I couldn't," he says, ignoring the taste of bile on his tongue, of the warm hands holding his own. "I don't belong there." This doesn't appear to deter Kirishima like he figured it would, as the man smiles and squeezes his hands a little tighter. "That's fine, because apparently neither do I. Not anymore, at least." Bakugou feels dizzy.
What the hell are you talking about? You love that place.
I know. Kirishima is quick to respond. I know, and I still do. I'll never stop, but there's nothing left for me there. I need to move on and let go, and I didn't realize that until I watched you drive away and I wasn't the one driving off with you.
What?
Kirishima shrugs. And, well, Mina might have helped beat some sense into me. Bakugou thinks he needs to pull his hands away. He thinks he needs to tell him to leave, to forget about him, about all of this. Tell him that the past week was fun, but that's all it was and all it can be.
You don't know me.
He's been alone and likes being alone. He doesn't have to deal with people or friends or trying to navigate in territory he's unfamiliar with. It's better this way, he thinks. He tells himself. Everything that happened was all just a fluke. This isn't something more. Then give me the chance to know you, because I think I'd really like whatever I find out. Bakugou chokes and then laughs. The noise is cracked and broken. He might be crying again for the second time today because of this dumb idiot of a man. But he's far too scared to reach up and touch his cheek to actually check. It's okay, however, because Kirishima reaches up with one of his hands instead to wipe at the tear falling down his cheek, ending with him cupping Bakugou's face right after. Again, Bakugou laughs. It all seems insane, stupid, altogether irrational and idiotic and irresponsible as well. Still, he recognizes it. He feels the pull, the way his heart beats so heavy, how he didn't think he'd ever see Kirishima again, and now that he's here, standing before him, touching him, it altogether feels so much better. The room is so warm.
Did you seriously just drive like 6 hours to ask me on a date?
Kirishima laughs too, leaning into Bakugou. Maybe. Are you gonna say yes?
Maybe.
Bakugou shrugs.
But first.
He leans over just a little, the world widening again, everything coming back into focus as he narrows in on Midoriya still standing by the door, looking all sorts of too happy and smug, standing practically on his tiptoes watching the entire scene unfold.
Deku, you better leave my key and leave my fucking apartment.
But I need to know. Bakugou reaches back and throws a pillow at him.
You don't need to know shit. Get out of my apartment.
Midoriya squeaks a little, but moves quickly. He practically throws the spare key down onto the counter and fumbles out the door before anything more solid can be thrown his way, still pausing long enough to shout out a goodbye and good luck and to have Kirishima call him as soon as everything is settled. Bakugou would have chased after him if it wasn't for a strong arm wrapping around his waist to pull him back. Be nice. Kirishima scolds. He helped me get here. Besides, I think I already promised we'd go on a double date with him and his girlfriend. Bakugou glares at him. Kirishima rolls his eyes. Come on, he seems nice. I've got to meet your friends eventually, right?
Eventually.
Bakugou stabs a finger at him.
I haven't even said yes yet.
Will you then? Kirishima asks. Say yes. Bakugou pouts, but moves his arms around Kirishima, creeping up to wrap them around his neck as he hums softly in thought.
Kiss me first and I'll see if you're actually worth it.
Kirishima huffs, shaking his head even as he leans down to capture Bakugou's lips with his own, pressing close and holding each other, basking in the warmth as Bakugou happily kisses back, both having thought that their morning goodbye had been their last. Babe, I can't find my tie. Shit, we're gonna be late. Bakugou appears out of their bedroom just as the full-blown panic is starting to settle on Kirishima's face. He's at his side quickly to smooth the wrinkles from the shoulders of his shirt and ease the worry from his brow.
I told you already,
he says, making sure Kirishima is looking directly at him.
This outfit doesn't need a tie. We're just going to have dinner. Relax.
Easing him doesn't work very well, it seems. Dinner with your parents, Kirishima is quick to throw out. Christmas dinner. Bakugou scoffs.
It's not even technically Christmas yet. It's only the 23rd.
That doesn't make it any better, as Kirishima looks like he'll sweat through his button-up before they even get out the door. They do have to leave in the next 10 minutes, or they will potentially be late, but Bakugou can't let his boyfriend go if he's in this much of a tizzy over a tie, or rather, meeting his parents, again, for the record.
We've had dinner with them 3 times. They love you already, so stop freaking out so much. My mother might start to actually think she's important or something.
She is important. I want them to like me.
Ichiro.
Bakugou puts his hand on Kirishima's chest, holding him still until he stops breathing so heavily, though he can still feel how fast his heart is beating at the very idea of going out to have dinner with his parents. His parents that have already approved and keep bothering Bakugou about the status of their relationship and if anything else exciting is happening. His parents who were over the moon to finally have Bakugou bring someone home. His parents who still comment about how good Kirishima is for him.
They like you. They'll continue to like you. It's gonna be fine.
When Kirishima breathes out this time, it's a little easier. The upturn of his eyebrows finally ebbs away as he leans into Bakugou's touch, wrapping his arms around Bakugou's waist as he presses his forehead against his own. I know. Still just feels weird.
That my parents are hidden away in a resort fucking right now.
Bakugou snorts.
I know. Tell me about it. You're real fucking important for them to not have their holiday.
This makes Kirishima smile, which Bakugou takes as a victory. That I'm living with you, Kirishima says. That I'm going to have dinner with your parents at all. Bakugou hums, rubbing his nose against Kirishima softly.
You're right. And on Christmas Day, we'll be going to see your dad and brother and the new baby. Then after that, we get to drive out to visit all your friends. And have the baby shower for Itsuka. Fuck, please don't remind me that thick-headed cousin of yours is actually going to be a dad.
Kirishima bumps his nose and Bakugou grins.
We're gonna do all that, and it's all gonna be okay. You know why?
Why?
Because.
Bakugou presses a soft kiss to his lips.
We're together.
Kirishima kisses him back, chasing after his mouth even as Bakugou tries to pull away. As hands start to wander, Bakugou needs to make the decision to smack them away instead of letting them go further, as much as he hates to do so. Bakugou leans back, pushing Kirishima just enough to not be fully tempted.
If you start that now, we will be late, idiot. We have all of tomorrow to not leave our bedroom before heading to see your family.
All right. Kirishima sighs, letting him go. I don't want to be late. They both grab their coats, put on their shoes, and give Riot and Cat a quick pet goodbye before they go. Don't let her beat you up too much. Kirishima coos at Riot even as he lays there happily on the couch, tail slowly thumping away, with Cat curled up right next to him, purring softly as she sleeps through the soft pets of goodbye. They're out the door and into the cold, pulling tight scarves and coats as they head to Bakugou's car. Still think you need to give her a proper name, you know, Kirishima says as soon as they enter the car, shaking off the small flakes of snow that collected in his hair from the short distance.
I did give her a proper name,
Bakugou argues.
but everyone shot it down.
King Explosion Murder is not a good name for a cat.
Fine.
Bakugou shifts into gear.
God Explosion Murder then.
Kirishima rolls his eyes, but can't help it as he leans across to kiss Bakugou once again over the console of the car before they pull out, and Bakugou lets him. Lets him kiss slowly, take his time, take the few seconds that they have left to just exist as them wrapped in each other's space, in each other's existence with purpose and desire. Knowing how this almost wasn't, almost never, and now a year later they're here, living together, not needing to say goodbye as they share their lives and their friends and their families. How they have dinner with Bakugou's parents. How they'll spend Christmas with Kirishima's family, a family he barely managed to see before. How they'll bring gifts and food and little marbled papers to keep a tradition alive. How they'll go north to see all of Kirishima's friends after. How they'll still stay in Kirishima's childhood home and put up lights even with the holiday slowly moving away. How they'll wipe away dust and clean out the fireplace and make sure all the blankets and pillows are warmed. They'll keep this shrine to his mother alive, but still go home after to continue moving and existing and being happy together. Kirishima pulls away, just a breath, just enough to look in Bakugou's eyes and see him looking back. I love you, Katsuki. And hear how both of them thought this would have been too good to be true. Too good of a thing for a stranger to save a stranger in more ways than one. How dumb they would have been otherwise if they hadn't at least tried.
Love you too, Ichiro.
They kiss again, once more, in the cold of a car in the middle of winter with the sparkle of Christmas lights dotting the apartments and houses around them before finally pulling away to make their dinner reservations, not wanting to be late.